All righty. Well, welcome everyone to Cisco Cast Virtual Kitchen. Today's a great subject that you saw in our opening ad today about hiring tips and really around labor. There's so many questions on what we're dealing with right now, but we've got awesome guests in the house or virtual kitchen. I think that's right. Anyways, Andrew Scott, Camille Sue from South, way down in South Virginia, right?
Yep.
Did I do that right? Okay,
Yep.
cool. I just want to make sure. Don't get north and south wrong. And Andrew, you're out east.
Well, I mean, east being Ottawa, so the capital, if you want to call that east, but
That works.
yeah, capital of Canada.
Andrew, you're are you the owner or CEO of Owner Shift Trainer?
Well, yeah, a little bit of both actually. So it's been my brainchild. For those who don't know me, I've started in the restaurant industry. Oh goodness, back in 2007 when I was 20 and knew everything. And I learned a lot of lessons along the way. I scaled up to 4 locations, tripled sales at my first location, did a lot of those things and expanded, and eventually realized that there's a lot of things that I learned over 14 years and mistakes that I made that I could help other restaurant owners with to basically scale much faster, more profitably, and with less stress. So I've kind of shifted into that while still owning my restaurants as well. But yeah, that's kind of my focus now. So that's why I'm here.
Camille, you're down south and you own an awesome bakery. Tell us a little bit about that before we get into this whole subject.
Yeah. So I didn't start the bakery. I actually took it over about 2.5 years ago. Worked there, and then the owner was just like, I don't want to do this anymore. So I've been working on improving it and just, trying to actually run it as a business. But we work on, we have retail items like cupcakes and cookies and cannolis that you can purchase right as you walk in. But we also do specialty occasion cakes. So if somebody wants a crazy cake shaped like a dog or a pineapple or anything that they can come up with, that's what we do.
Nice. And this past year has been kind of crazy, I'm assuming.
Yes, it has. We've had ups and downs, but thankfully we've stayed pretty busy with support of our community. So
that's awesome. Yeah, we've heard that a lot. And I think that's such a great thing is the community's really got behind. And that's probably the silver lining, if there's any, within our industry around this, is the attention that it's really brought community on supporting us. And it's awesome to hear that. Yeah. So Andrew, let's talk labor, hiring, however you want to call it. Let's get into it. Let's talk about this. So I've got a million questions, and we want to make sure the people that are going to be joining us today, you have the ability to ask us questions, throw comments up there, and we'll try to answer them. And we'll go from there. But over to you, Andrew.
Okay, perfect. So to make a short story boring, it is one of the most challenging periods that we've ever experienced in hiring. And so what I've been finding through people I talk to worldwide, everyone is struggling hiring right now, and there's a few different reasons for that. Number one, there are people that are out of the labor market because they are scared. They could be immunocompromised. They could have family members that are high risk, so therefore they're trying to stay home more. They're not in the job market as much. We hear all the time about the different unemployment supports that are there. So therefore, people, because there are unemployment supports available, they might be less motivated to work. And so what this has done, especially coming into spring with restrictions lessening, weather getting nicer, a lot of those things happening, it has created basically like a Pandora's box of hiring where just everything wrong you can imagine is happening right now, because April is a tough month for hiring anyway, particularly in Canada when sales start to trend up and university students and everyone in that age, there's a lot of change over there. It's normally a tough month. April and September are usually the 2 toughest months of the year, but compound that with fewer people in the job market, compound that with unemployment supports, and combine that with everything else that's going on, it has actually made it very, very difficult. And I've heard of some locations in the U.S. only opening a few days a week or shrinking their hours from down to 4 hours a week or whatever they actually have the staff to be able to manage. So that's the situation that we're coming into. And so what everyone's wondering is, well, what do I do about it? How do I navigate through this? Because it is probably the worst hiring time that we will ever see in our lives. That's the way I'm looking at it.
And it's kind of hard in a sense to even believe this is what we're seeing right now with all these closures. Is that something that people need to just kind of look at? Like, what's today is not really what tomorrow's going to look like.
Yeah, and you know what? It's so funny because I talk to a lot of my clients and even my own management team and so on. I say the reality of today, is today, but we have to look at what's happening 6, 8 weeks from now, because any decision we make, it takes time to go out there. So we have to be looking at the future right now, because if you plan your business on what's happening today, you're always going to be behind the 8 ball.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's something I think a lot of people in the States probably weren't anticipating in a sense, right?
However, I was telling everyone back in January and February, I remember this, saying, okay, guys, we need to start thinking about hiring. We need to focus on hiring now. It is coming. It is coming. And it's so funny. I actually have a text message from one of my clients, and she texted me. She said, Andrew, I hate messaging you this, but you were right, and I didn't listen. And now I'm in a really tough position, and I'm working 80 hours a week because I didn't hire when you told me to, and which is really unfortunate, because there are patterns. Yes, COVID and all this other stuff has exacerbated these issues, but there are patterns seasonally that our businesses have. But often we're so into the business and so close to it that we don't recognize the patterns that are right in front of us.
Now, can you kind of explain some of those patterns for us?
Well, speaking from the Canadian market, we know that winter is winter. Winter is cold. People don't want to go outside. So we know that is usually December, January. Those are usually slower months for us, February as well. But we know that when we get into March and the weather starts to turn in April, we start to see a 20-30% month over month sales increase. It happens every year. Compounded with that is the demographic that we normally hire from, which is aged 18 to 23, 24. That's a very normal demographic for entry-level positions in restaurants and retail and things like that. The university schedules end. Exams are in April. So people are then booking time off to do their exams. And then sometimes they're moving home. They're moving in other places. And so what happens in April every single year is when you drive down the road, every business is hiring. The grocery stores are hiring. McDonald's is hiring. Every single business you can think of is all hiring in April. And so what that means is there's fewer people in the labor market, because the university students and those of those demographics, they're changing, they're moving. I've had so many people in the past be like, well, I'm actually moving to Australia next month. And I'm like, where did that come from? Because everyone would tell me in March, oh yeah, we're going to be staying through the summer. Everything's great. Then you get to April and it's like, oh, sorry, no, that changed. And so we have this unexpected turnover every year. And so there's fewer people in the job market, but more jobs available, which means the same thing happens at the job market as what's happening in the housing market in a lot of places right now. Very little supply, a lot of demand means hundreds of thousands of dollars over asking prices for a lot of houses. That's the stuff I'm hearing in the Canadian market anyway. And so that just means it is so tough to find people. That means there's fewer applicants, or if you do get applicants, there are more no-shows, because by the time they get to your interview, they probably already have a job.
Wow.
There's so much.
Has that whole hiring process, or even just that, or just posting different jobs online, has that changed a lot too through the COVID?
Yeah. You know what? Not even, I wouldn't even say COVID. COVID has definitely changed and sped up some changes, especially from the online market. So when we're looking at that, I was talking to a guy the other day, and he said, I post an ad on Indeed, and everyone who applied, I told them to come and bring their application in person. And I was like, okay. So what's the benefit of that? And he says, well, because I get to see them in person, I get to talk to them, I get to, get a feel for them, see if they might fit, all that kind of stuff. I'm like, great. Is that not what an interview is for? He's like, well, I guess you're right. And so he's like, not a single person came into the store. And I said two things to him. I said, number one, that's an unnecessary thing to do. But number one, by doing that, you're basically asking someone to go out of their house and then apply in person. You're adding an additional step, whereas all the other jobs are available. They might even hire you on the spot. They might not even bring you in for an interview. They are so desperate right now. And kind of the second thing I said to him was just, you got to make it easy, because right now there's just so much competition. You're just adding an extra exclusion there that doesn't need to be there. And it's not that they don't want to come in. It's just that they don't have to. And why are you making it harder to work for you than it needs to be?
So Camille, have you experienced some of this?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I started working with Andrew a couple of months ago, and he was like, well, we're going to get a couple things straight, and then we're going to work on hiring. And I was like, yeah, hiring. And now I'm sitting here and I'm like, we have to turn away business because I don't have enough people to work. So I'm having
Wow.
to limit my business because I wasn't prepared.
Was that a surprise?
Yes, and honestly, I wasn't really ready for our restrictions to be lifted so much so quickly. And they were, which is great. I'm glad we get to do things again. And I'm glad people get to celebrate, but I wasn't ready for that. And the moment that the restrictions were lifted, everyone was like, we need cakes, we need to celebrate, let's have a party. And they came to us, and I've had to say, I'm so sorry we can't be a part of this one, but maybe the next one.
Yeah.
Wow. That's you know, when you think about it, where we are right now and to look down the road. And I think this is something that I think a lot of operators, we just never been through this. And you see the economists are like, well, we really don't even know what the economy is going to look like. We can kind of predict, but it's a very definitely a roller coaster ride right now, especially in Canada with closing and opening, closing and opening. Will that affect the quality of people you get, Andrew, when you're looking for hiring? Is this opening closing that we're
Well,
going through?
you know what? Actually, so there's two things I want to mention on that. Before to answer that question directly, what Camille is talking about, everyone I speak to is they are basing their hiring decisions and their planning based on where they are today, right? The same way Camille was. And basically what we need to do is shift our thinking. Yes, we might be in a lockdown. Sitting in Ottawa, we are at a stay-at-home order. We're not supposed to leave the house right now. However, I know that 4, 6, 8 weeks from now, that will be different. And so how long is it going to take you to hire people? A couple weeks. How long is it going to take you to train them? 3, 4, 5 weeks. It's going to be a little bit of time. So realistically, if you started to hire now, you would actually be in a much better place when the restrictions lift. But the problem is most people won't think about that until it's too late and the restrictions are lifting, and then they're trying to hire and they're already behind the 8 ball. So I tell all of my clients, when you need to hire, you're already 6 weeks behind. So we need to shift that thinking a little bit differently. But to answer your question, Jay, what has happened a lot is there are people that have now left the industry altogether because there are also some entry-level corporate office jobs, places like that. What they've done now is there's some people in the offices that are on leave because they're staying home with their kids if they can't go to school. We know that obviously schools are now closed in Ontario for the first little bit anyway, hopefully a little bit. But what's happening is there's people on leave, so they need to fill those positions. So there are other positions that are taking some of the restaurant, what's normally been the restaurant industry's bread and butter. So there's fewer people looking for those jobs because who wants to go through and say, okay, we're closed, we're open, we're closed, we're open. Some people are saying, hey, I'm fed up with this. I'm looking for a whole other industry altogether. I need to make a change. And so that has just made it even more difficult if you're not able to retain the team members that you have.
Yeah, and that's got to be hard.
Yep.
Because I think, well, obviously before COVID, we were really talking more and more, and a lot of the lectures that I was doing across Canada, we were even talking about this experience economy. Is that going to factor like the quality that you have around this whole experience, or are people going to be more open to like the demand, like the non? I wouldn't say that way. Let's try to rephrase that. Jay, are they going to be more okay with maybe the servers or the quality that you're producing? Not as the top 100% that you could produce. Are they is people going to be okay with that, or is that going to be they're going to be less forgiving? I guess is what I'm trying to say.
That's actually a great question. I know, Camille, you actually mentioned something along this, whether customers are more forgiving now that the restrictions are lessened. So I don't know, maybe you can share a little bit on what you're seeing because you're a little bit ahead of the curve of where we are in Canada.
Yeah, I think people are understanding, especially after what we have all been through in the last year, and knowing that, even as a consumer level, you couldn't go to the grocery store and get bread or butter at some point. So I think they're understanding of like, if you don't have products because of ordering issues and supply issues, I think they're understanding to that. Now, there are some people that have this built up expectation because they haven't had that experience in so long and they haven't gone out, that they are expecting a level of perfection to a point, just because, you think about every moment that you've had. And, when you think back, it was a great and wonderful experience, even if it wasn't, and they want that again. So I think they're expecting that, but I think they're also understanding if it's not.
That's good. That's good. And I'm sure that will be time sensitive in a way. It'll a demand for quality and good food and good service will probably ramp up as more as we, I don't want to say get back to normal, but as we get back to somewhat the new normal looks like.
Yeah. Yeah, although I think there will be a big shift in the way people do ordering. I think takeout and online ordering, that will still be much more prevalent in the time to come. And so a question for restaurants is, how do we take that same service level and translate that into a very depersonalized environment? And that's the question that that we're asking internally. That's a question that I think the whole industry needs to evaluate, because how do you create the same service level that you used to in person through personal relationships and human connection? How do you do that through a digital environment? And I think that's probably one of the new challenges that we will face in this new normal coming up.
Absolutely. So, Andrew, what do you do to help restaurants when you train them and coach them, and folks like Camille that you've helped? What's your processes that you do?
Yes.
Magic.
I wouldn't say magic, although I try.
Magic,
You know what? It's a great thing. So each, in my experience, the clients that I've brought on, at least recently, usually have two major areas of focus. It's either in their internal operations, that being one of the main focuses. So, for example, the things aren't getting done the way they should be done. There's a lack of clarity around the training procedures, the operational procedures. How does this order get made, and how do you replicate it the same way every time, no matter who's there? Most owners find that they have to be there a lot, because if they're not, things start to kind of go away. Actually, I was contacted by a lady in Australia last night who said, I had to step away because I had a surgery, and I came back and I had lost, half of my regular clients. And now I'm back to working 7 days a week, and I don't have time to even focus on my health now. So when you don't have the right systems and procedures in place, that's a huge red flag. And Camille, that's something that we've worked on, just because there's a bunch of different parts of the business. There's a very specific, cake part of it. There's a retail side. And so we just want to make sure everything's clear for everyone so it can be executed, and we can hold our teams accountable to the high standards that are going to move our business forward. So that's one part of it. The second piece of it is the people. How do we find the right people? Because I'm sure everyone here, even before COVID, even before the scenario we have now, has had people that they've had a hard time getting them to do the right things or to be the right people. Oh, they have 20 different grandmothers that have passed away somehow, and they're constantly calling in, or not showing up, or when they're there, they're on their phones all the time. They're not performing to that level. And the effect that has on the ownership, the management, and the solid group of really good employees that have to pick up the slack, that's a huge part. So part of what I help them with is divine, how do we attract the right people? How do we use our interview questions to be able to know which one is a good person to hire? Because most of us use our gut feelings, like, oh, they were a nice person, I'm going to hire them. But guess what? Our gut feelings change based on our emotions. We're humans, we're emotional, it happens. That's not a system. And I challenge people to think beyond this as well, because most of us got into business to make more and work less. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
But most of us end up working more and making less. So what I try and do is coach my clients into thinking beyond themselves, because maybe you could hire someone great, but then what happens when you pass that on to a manager, when you go to grow to multiple locations and expand your business? How do you know that they're going to make the same decisions that you would? So your business needs to run on systems, not on you. And I think that's the biggest thing.
The other thing, I just want to jump on that, Andrew, because you made me think, because I'm going back to when I was running restaurants and hiring people. No one taught us on how to hire people.
No, absolutely not.
No one really said this is what you should do, and this is what you should look for. These are the traits you're looking for. That you hire on skill, or do you hire on attitude? Like, what should people do then if that's the case? Like,
well, you know what? And that's, most of us have learned it by making mistakes. But here's the thing, though. Here's the one thing I want to point out. No matter who I talk to, they often say that they often put the blame on the people. Oh, well, they just weren't cut out. So someone quits on you with no notice. Well, they weren't a right fit anyway. They weren't cut out for this. They couldn't handle it. They're a snowflake. Or they're like, I hear all of these things. Oh, millennials and Gen Z, they can't do it. But the reoccurring pattern is all of that's happening in your business. So what I try and challenge people to think of, yes, there might be issues with all those people, but guess who hired them? You did. So
Yeah.
knowing that there's an issue in the system, because you're right, they may be the wrong fit, but you still hired them anyway. So how do we try and predict those things earlier to affect those changes? Because think of it this way, we spend 90% of our HR time on the bottom 10% of our performers. Imagine what you could do
Wow.
if you actually spent the majority of your time on your top performers. Where would your business be if you didn't have to spend all your time just to get your less performing team members up to mediocre?
Yeah, you're
What
absolutely
if
right.
that wasn't your focus?
I love the
Right?
fact that you say that we actually learn through mistakes.
Mhm.
I have a few, but Camille, did you have that too? Did you
Oh,
learn through some of the?
I think I've had the conversation with Andrew that, I have a business degree and they teach you how to read a P&L statement, but they don't teach you how to actually run a business. Um, so it's been a lot of learning along the way of, people and managing people and learning how to work with them, as well as, when you hire somebody, how do you bring them on correctly so that everything makes sense to them, and train them up and that they know who to ask questions to and what questions to ask.
Yeah, I got a story here. You're gonna laugh on this one, Andrew. Sorry, I'm sorry, but I remember running a restaurant, and I remember the owner said, "Well, we got to hire some people," and I put this is before the internet. Okay, it was a primary area, so it was like, "Hey, go get a newspaper ad." You remember those?
Mm.
When we had the I think they were classifieds in the back. We used to call them.
Yeah.
And you'd have a job posting. I actually put looking for a funky server.
Mhm.
I got some funky servers applying, I tell you. It was very
Yeah.
interesting. And that's just that whole thing about not really knowing what to do.
Yeah.
And then is this short term or is this long term? This whole labor problem we're going to go through. Like how short do you think this will be? Is this going to get better over 1 year, 6
Yeah.
months?
So you know what? Personally, I think, and I'm not going to put money on this necessarily, but my instinct is that when we get about a month from now, we'll start to see some positive changes, because that's when the people in that university age demographic who are now shifting their lives, they will now be more settled into where they're going to be. So there will be more applications from that particular age demographic. However, there will still be ongoing effects for the rest of this year. Absolutely. But what I will tell you is that the people challenges, it is easy for everyone to say that the people challenges, oh, it's so bad right now. It's so bad right now. We can't find anyone. And it's easy to blame it all on COVID. But every call I've had with people, I've said, well, hey, did you have people problems before COVID? And they were like, yeah, I did. So the whole point is that this has made it 10 times worse. 100% not going to disagree with that. But what I will say is that you probably had hiring issues before. Now they have just been brought to the forefront, and you're not able to run your business because there was always a steady stream of the wrong candidates. Now the wrong candidates have been removed from the labor markets, because let's face it, the people who are wanting to take advantage of the unemployment supports and not work, because we hear that talk all the time. Well, they're too lazy and it's easier to sit at home and so on. Those aren't the people that you wanted to hire anyway. It just means that now all of the great people are already hired, and now we're fighting them. And then the literally there's the wages to pay people now that has skyrocketed, because there has been an artificial element put in by the government where, to stay home, you can get X amount. And so now we have to raise our pay significantly more because of that. So I believe it'll still be around for the rest of the year to a degree. But here's the thing is, when that happens, there's still going to be hiring issues. It won't be as bad. But if there's hiring issues right now, to be honest, there's already things wrong in your process, because there probably was last year too. And I think that's the big take home we need to know, is that the people side of the business will always be the hardest piece. So you can either learn how to do it better, or you can hire robots and self-ordering kiosks. So whichever way you're going to go, I think those are kind of your two options now.
Is there an age group that is more like is an area that restaurateurs should be targeting more? Is it a younger group, older group? Where should you be targeting right now if you're looking for hiring people?
You know what? That's a very loaded question from a legal perspective. I will say that, because you can't technically you can't discriminate based on age. So let me just say that for anyone out there, you cannot ask that in an interview, by the way. But what I will say is I've heard just as many just as many stories of younger people doing it. So I hear people, Gen Z or millennials, they don't want to work. They don't have the same work ethic. They don't have common sense. They don't have all this. I have found that no matter who it is, I've had people that have been 40s and 50s and have had the exact same issues. So I would say that there is no such thing as common sense, and there is no such thing as common knowledge, because guess what? What you think might be a stupid mistake is not a stupid mistake to someone who's never made it before. And I think that it gets so easy to actually say, hey, this person's stupid. They've made this mistake. How would they not know how to do this thing? It's so simple. It makes perfect sense for someone who's been doing it as long as you have. And I think that the ultimate cure to a lack of common sense is to have a really great training program.
Yeah.
And
I was going to ask you that. Yeah. Cause I think that's key. Right. And I think there's so many amazing training programs now that are virtual on your phone. The old days of the 300-page binder that you would hand them, those days are gone. And which is great. Cause I would like, how many 16-year-olds or 18-year-olds read a binder of stuff? But I love this subject just because, like I said, it's something that a lot of people just learn from trial and error, and unfortunately, it's so sensitive.
Yeah.
We always, you always put your business in these people's hands, is my mind.
Yep.
And training them, making sure you get the good people. It's the face of your brand. It's the face of what you're trying to do, and I think it's so important that you get the right people.
Yeah. And you know what? I have to add something here, because everyone talks about, oh, do you have training videos? Do you have, digital methods of training? Do you have all of these things? And I keep saying to every person, that's only step one. That is only step one. That is communicating the basic information to people. Okay, so how do you assemble a coffee, for example? Sure, you can have a training program on that. Hi, Melissa, how's it going? Like your comment. So what I would say is that it's step number one. So you can teach someone how to make a coffee, but at the end of the day, you need to then have great management in place to make sure that, okay, let's watch you do it. Let's make sure you're not making those same mistakes. Let's monitor that all the way through. And, there's so much more to it. So that's step one. And that's a great first step. And I find that sometimes companies are using those digital means of training because they are actually putting a Band-Aid on the problem. And I apologize for any digital trainers out there. My view on it is that everyone says, well, we need to have all of this stuff to create consistency, which is great. But I find they often do that so they can skip over a well-trained manager, in a sense, because they don't trust the manager to do the same level of training that they need to, and to actually hold people accountable. And great training without accountability and proper management actually isn't going to create the results that you want. So I had to throw that in there because it is a absolutely valid first piece of it, but it will never replace your in-person management and on-site training.
Camille, you agree with that?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. It's that old saying, the hands-on, right? You got a hands-on, you got to get reviewed by, you're bringing back so many memories of just all the things I learned over the years running restaurants and just that whole thing of, and I really believe that age group that primarily is in your restaurant, that are the servers and the chefs and everyone else that you have in your brigade or in your staffing, they really seek that. I find is that feedback, especially in the younger generations. They like hearing it. They like that constant improvement. That feedback for improvement. I find it it feels good in a way too, and I also believe that the rhythm of doing that needs to be consistent. Not just once in a while or off. You need to be on top of that, providing that. And that's great leadership, as to what Melissa was saying. Great leadership within your restaurants. I find the most successful restaurants that I've ever worked with are the ones that have an amazing leader. And a leadership mindset within that whole organization. Those are the ones you
Jay, do you know what the number one piece of feedback coming up from employees is?
What is that? I don't have a clue.
That they want more feedback.
They want more feedback.
That's
Yeah.
literally, that's the number one, that they want to know how they're doing. They want to know how they can improve. And I hear so many people saying that, oh, my people, they suck, or they don't want to do anything, or they don't do any of that. I mean, I would say two things. One, you might have the wrong people, or two, you might not actually be challenging them enough, because we know it. Even us being, high performing individuals, Camille being amazing. We have the best cakes I've ever seen in my life, and I'm kind of getting hungry after looking at her Instagram. But the whole point is that even she and I and you will need someone to hold us accountable as well. Naturally, we might be pushing that 90% of our capacity on our own, but to eke out that little bit of extra, you do need a little bit of accountability, and your team members do as well. So I would say that is the biggest piece of feedback. And just to go back on something else that you said as well, who we should be targeting. I learned this in a podcast. I can't remember which one, but I always look for people with PhDs that are poor, hungry, and determined. And the reason I do that is because here's the thing. I always believe in promoting internally in my organizations. And I say, how do we take someone from an entry-level employee, recruit the ones that have the diamond in the rough, and then train them up to be the leaders that we know they can be? That's a big part of what I do. And for them, I absolutely love seeing the growth. But I believe if you take the right person and you give them the right opportunity, just get out of their way and see what they can do with it. And I've never been disappointed with that model. Nearly as much as trying to bring people in from the outside. That's just a little.
And that would be, is that very similar? That's exactly kind of that same thing of hiring people with experience or no experience.
Yep.
Right. Camille,
hire the person.
Yeah. Hire the person. Have you found that any surprises, Camille, on the whole idea of around someone that had no experience that blew you away that you brought on?
Yeah.
Is that, yeah.
We actually hired a high schooler about a year ago, and she was just like, I want to learn things, but I don't even care if I'm a dishwasher. Like, I just want to be here. And we started out on a dishwasher. She'd get all of her tasks done before her shift ended. She'd go, okay, what else can I learn? And so now we've been able to bring her into the decorating side and also teach her some cashier duties and cross-train her. And she's just been rocking my world.
Yeah.
And that's the person you need to hire. That's the person you need to find in your process. And then once you find that person, like there's an old saying that we used to use in the business, which was, I can teach someone how to make a sandwich, but I can't teach someone how to smile. And so you're hiring that person and then training these skills that go along with it. And I think that is a really underserved piece of advice that I think would help a lot of people.
Yeah. And I truly believe that. I truly believe in that as well. Is you just can't wire them in a way when they come in the interview and you can see they're excited to be there. And like you said, Camille, about I want to be here. It's amazing because I think the big thing also I just want to bring up too, before we wrap up here is, and I saw this in one of Anthony Bourdain's post the other day, something that he posted out there about something about the misfits. The restaurant industry is really bringing the misfits together and stuff, and especially in the kitchen. And I love that. But it is the thing that when he said that, it reminds me of that you create a family of who you work with in this industry, right? And you're so tied in. And as owners and operators, you kind of get to select who's in that family through your process. And I remember one of my managers like a zillion years ago was he always referenced like, would I be good with them for a full day in a boat? And, if I'm going to hire them, sit in a boat all day with them, or am I going to want to throw them over after a while? And we don't get to pick our families, but we definitely get to pick who we have on board to support our businesses. And you create a family and you create a bond. And I've been through that, and it's amazing too. It's amazing, and the feelings you get for that bond and that family. And Camille, you probably have this as well. Your people, your family, right?
Yeah, 100%. I spend more time with them than I do at home. So
it's so true, right? It's so true. So,
Jay,
Andrew, sorry, do you want to go through some more stuff here?
Yeah, actually, what I was going to suggest is I just, quickly, I would love to just give people some quick tips and tricks on how to hire in this environment. And then Camille, who has been doing some of it, can share her experience if that's cool.
Let's go for it.
All right. So, just very quickly, the biggest thing you need to do to hire in this environment right now, everyone's doing all the same things they used to do. So, what you need to do is treat your hiring like you treat your marketing. So, instead, we put our best creative out, our best words, our best offers for all of our marketing to drive new customers in. But some reason we actually take our hiring and say, well, must be energetic, must be able to live 50 pounds, must be available this time, and tell them all the reasons they shouldn't apply. Where very few people say, hey, why should you work someplace? And here's the thing we need to know about Gen Z and millennials is they want to actually do meaningful work. So how can you, like, what's different about your restaurant and your business? What about working for that is meaningful? How can they contribute something bigger than themselves? Because the offer of just a job is not enough, because right now there's 100 jobs that need people. So how can you attract the best? And that's the question that we ultimately have to ask. And think about it, even from the perspective of your job ad, the title of your job ad, server wanted. That's just like 100 other job ads that are out there in titles, right? So how can you literally have that be unique enough and a call to action enough that will sell someone reading the ad? And then how can you make your ad sell the interview? And then how do you make your communications between the application and interview? How can you sell that interview to reduce your no-show rate? And then during the interview, how can you sell the position so people are actually competing to work for you instead of the other way around? And actually, I had someone comment on my Facebook that it was not even a client. They're like, I've just been reading your stuff and I did this, and now people are fighting to work in my restaurant. And I was like, imagine what you could do if you actually worked with me. So that's the thing we have to think about in this market right now. You have to hire continually. You have to make sure you're getting people in for interviews within 24 to 48 hours. You need to do it quick because there are more no-shows the longer you go. And ultimately, we need to stand out because everyone's doing the same thing. So what you need to do is stand out above the rest, the same way you'd want your marketing to stand out from the rest. So what makes your restaurant unique, and why should someone want to work there? And if you lead with that, you're going to have a much better chance differentiating yourself. So Camille, I know you've implemented some of that. So tell us how it's going.
Yeah, it's going really well. We used to just have like an application form online on our website that people would just fill at any time. And if I saw someone great, I'd be like, hey, yeah, we could probably use somebody right now. But I recently set out a job on Indeed instead of just saying cashier. I said customer service all-star. And we've actually gotten feedback from some of the people that we've interviewed. They're like, honestly, I applied just because of the description, just because it was different than just saying, we want you to do this. You have to do this. This is your requirement. This is what we're expecting from you. And instead just saying like, this is why you should work here. And this is your purpose and our goal to be a part of the team. And I mean, we normally if we had to fill a position, we put it out there, we might get 5 applicants. Using this different technique, I had a Zoom meeting with Andrew for maybe an hour, and I was like, oh my gosh, we just got 8 more applicants just in an hour, let alone my other other systems, just like 4 or 5 people. Like, it's nuts.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So it is possible in this market to actually have some success with hiring. And the key is that we have to do things differently because it's so much more competitive now. We have to do things differently so you can stand out from the rest. I think that's probably the biggest piece to take away from today is when things get tougher, we need to adapt.
Yeah.
Very cool. Love that tip. And it's so true. So true. I have a daughter looking for a job right now. And the same thing is you go through it with her and it's the same. You're exactly right. It's that server wanted, cashier wanted, cook wanted, right? Yeah, I never thought of it that way, but that's
or a sign up in the door, like
exactly.
Like who does that anymore? Anyway,
yeah.
I apologize if you do. Let's talk.
Exactly. Yeah, we can help you. Yeah, Andrew can help you. Awesome stuff. Other tips?
Oh, I mean, I could go on for hours, but I mean, ultimately, like I think those are probably the biggest ones. One other one that I think would help, wherever you're posting it, don't post it once. It's not a set it and forget it thing. It's every day you need to be out there because there's new applicants coming to the job market every day. And so therefore you're just trying to get any new entrants every day. So you need to post it multiple times, multiple platforms. I like to say that, when we're posting ads, it should almost be like we threw up on the job board. We just wanted to be everywhere. And that's how we do our hiring, because we have to make sure, like if you are what's the old saying, like if you're not memorable, you're forgettable.
Mhm.
And so the same thing from job ads. We need to take that attention somehow. So we've got to get out there. We've got to do it often. And within a day, you could be on page 10 of all the new jobs that have come out there. That's everybody's hiring right now.
Absolutely. So what
Yeah.
about social? I see a lot of people posting
Yep.
jobs on social platforms,
Yep.
not just job like Indeed and stuff. I
Yep.
see it on LinkedIn. We're hiring. I see it on
Yep.
Instagram recently. Is that a recommend? Is that a good place to do that, or should you stick to
Mm.
those Indeed sites?
So the question I ask when someone ever says, "Hey, I'm going to put a job ad on Facebook," I say, "Great. Who are you targeting with that? Who are your ideal employees, and where do they go?" And so for most people, they're like, "Oh, well, they're always on Instagram and TikTok and Snapchat." I'm like, "Okay, so then is posting that job ad on Facebook going to do you any good?" And they're like, "Oh, yeah, no, that makes sense." However, you might actually get people's parents on Facebook, or like that is possible. So I mean, it could definitely be worthwhile. But I always think the same way we're targeting our marketing. If your ideal client is someone who's a family, for example, if that's who you're trying to bring into your restaurant, you would go where your families go. You would look for those specific areas and those markers that would help target them. You need to do the same thing when you're looking for employees as well. Who are you targeting, and how do you get in front of them where they're at? So social could definitely be a great place. And even when it comes to different job sites, some people say, well, I did it on Kijiji or this place or that place. And I ask them the same question: where are people looking for jobs in your area? And ask your current employees, where are their friends looking for jobs? And go there, because you need to get in front of the right people. Because you could have the best offer, the best ad copy, like the best job ad copy. You could have the best job ad title, but if no one sees it, it's not going to matter. So you've got to go in front of the people and get it where it needs to go.
Video ads about jobs in your location. Have you seen those? I've seen a few of those.
I mean, I've done a few of those in the past. I usually send them a video of like, "Hey, you should work here," because it's like a minute video. I send that after they apply, in between that and the interview. So I've done that before. But you know what? Yeah, I mean, whatever is going to attract people, that's what you've got to do. Find out what your ideal employee is looking for, what kind of benefits, what kind of salary, what kind of, like, what's important to them. As I've heard people say, well, we give, health benefits and we give this. And, most of the people they were trying to bring on and hire live at home and are covered under their parents' plan. So therefore, that wasn't really relevant for them. So, what is it that's actually going to make a difference for the people you're trying to attract? We have to, instead of thinking about this from what we need, we have to think about what will attract them. It's a totally different, shifted frame of reference now.
Awesome stuff. Awesome. It's just so valuable. So valuable. So hopefully everyone took something from this today that are we're gonna watch this later or
Yep.
tune in today when they did. And I just can't thank you both enough. Like this is just
Yeah.
awesome. This is great advice, and this will help a lot of restaurants as we get through where we are right now in this
Yep.
fall and spring and summer, or this summer and fall, I believe is going to be nuts. And we're hoping all the best. So I
Yeah.
just thank you both for attending today's show.
Yeah, and if anyone's interested as well, I actually have a restaurant hiring playbook, absolutely free. I can send Jay the link, but you can download it. It has literally the job ad that's gotten hundreds of applicants for multiple clients, even has sample interview questions, just literally everything that you need to know to succeed in this job market, absolutely free. So I will send over that link, and yeah, have at it.
You
And
can find
hopefully,
more information at your website too, right? We have it
oh,
going across the bottom there.
perfect.
Right. And then I just can't thank you both enough. And
Awesome.
Camille, thank you again. All the best down there as you
Thanks.
guys get back to the new normal. And you guys are going to be busy, I know, for what's going on and how you guys are a little ahead of us down there. So all the best to you. And thanks again for spending time today with us.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity
Awesome.
to the both of you.
Awesome. Excellent. Well, thanks again. And everyone else, you know what today is, by the way, just both of you, it's in Canada, it's National Takeout Day. So today is April 15th. It's National Takeout Day today. So you want to make sure you go and support restaurants. I'm going to do a triple takeout day, meaning breakfast for my daughter upstairs and my kids. And then I'm going to do lunch, and then we're going to do dinner. We're doing a triple takeout day. So
Nice.
support our restaurants, especially the places that are closed. You can't dine in. Takeout day
Yeah.
is important today in Canada. And everyone get out there and support them. So, and next week we're back more again, Tuesdays and Thursdays. Every week we're live right here. But thanks again, both you and everyone else that tuned in. Have a great rest of your day and go get some takeout. And Support your restaurants. They need us.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you, Jay.
All right.
Take care.
Bye.